All right. So, hi, my name is Chris Riles. I'm the anti-hunger advocate here at Tennessee Justice Center. Thank you for joining us today to talk about natural disasters and nutrition program support. This is a topic we wanted to talk about for a while, especially seeing as we've had a couple of instances of tornadoes and some flooding and snowstorms and all kinds of other stuff that's happened recently. Um, so we wanted to make sure that we got ahead of that and talked a little bit about how this works before it's needed, which is an important time to talk about it. That being said, we're going to go ahead and get started. Um, so this is our team. My name is Chris, as I said, and the rest of our team is on the call. You'll see them on the call, and we will have our contact information on the last slide if you want to reach out to us at some point. Um, yeah, this is us. This is what we do as a team. So our team is the nutrition team and the anti-hunger team here at Tennessee Justice Center. And we work pretty heavily with the safety net programs like SNAP, WIC, and Child Nutrition. We do casework, we do advocacy, we do legal. So we do a lot of stuff to help make sure that people get on these programs and are able to stay on them and they're equitable. So a little bit of overview for today. First, we're going to talk about kind of what we're wanting to get out of this webinar, and then we'll talk about the federal programs that we work with and how they interact with this. And then we're going to throw it over to our friend Whitney Cowles at Second Harvest to talk about what their role in this is. Then we'll talk about kind of some action items and next steps, some resources, and we'll leave some room to kind of talk about what we learned. So the goals of this webinar, what are we trying to learn today? So what we're doing here is we're trying to understand how these disasters, and when we say natural disasters, this could be anything from, like I said, snow, storms to, floods, tornadoes, uh, cyber attacks, I think is included in this category, which is not a natural disaster, but it's still something that affects us. We want to learn how federal programs and other sectors like food banks, emergency food system, helps to activate when these things happen to help make sure people stay fed. And then ultimately, we want to leave with knowledge and resources for when this happens inevitably again in Tennessee. It is best to know these things before they happen. That's how these work best. So yeah, we'll get right into it. So when a natural disaster occurs, we there's a few things that happen, but largely the thing that affects us most is that key infrastructure can fail. And this can leave people in need, even if there's no injuries or death that occurs, there are still things that happen that can affect how life works. Some examples of this are electricity, transportation, telecommunications, which includes internet and phone access, which can be a huge issue. Sewage, being able to get your child to someone who can keep them while you do other things like work. Access to water is a really important one that often gets overlooked. And there's, a lot more that can fail. All these things are integral to human life and are super important. And sometimes we don't miss them until they're gone. And all of these things together or separately can contribute to hunger and emergency need for people who might not ever face hunger in their normal day-to-day lives. So there are a few things that happen immediately in these situations. And there are a few organizations that activate pretty immediately to meet like what we call the immediate need. This is, water and safety and first aid, that kind of thing. So first we have nonprofit organizations or NGOs in some places. This is places like Salvation Army, Red Cross, food banks, like we'll hear from Whitney in a minute, and several more. This is not an exhaustive list by any means. Another thing that activates is going to be government agencies. Two of these are going to be FEMA and TEMA, so the Federal Emergency Management Agency and TEMA, which is the Tennessee Emergency Management Agency. They activate at different levels for different reasons, but usually they're one of the first responders to a situation when something emergent happens, like a natural disaster. There are some other agencies that activate depending on the need and the reason, but these are the large ones. And then there's some other groups that kind of don't really fit into either one of these categories. The most important one being VOAD. So VOAD is the Voluntary Organizations Active in Disasters. These are groups of organizations, agencies, and other individuals who have committed themselves to activate their services in a disaster. And there are VOADs at the national, state, and local levels. For instance, there's a VOAD here in Nashville. There's also a Tennessee level VOAD, and there's also a national VOAD. So they all have different jurisdictions and scopes of what they do. It's not super relevant to this conversation, but it is something really interesting to look into to make sure you have knowledge of it. And if you're part of an organization that thinks that they could be helpful, you might reach out and see if you can join. So next we're going to talk about federal programs, because that's where we really come in with our work. And these are the programs that really have a lot of nuance when it comes to this conversation. So these are going to be, the main one here is going to be SNAP. So for those of you who know or don't know, SNAP is a Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program run by the USDA, the federal program that millions of people are on. This is all used to be known as food stamps. This is a program that helps people stay fed on a regular basis. However, during a natural disaster, there are two major ways that it activates to meet the need. One of those is called disaster SNAP, which is colloquially referred to as DSNAP. The other one is going to be replacement SNAP, also colloquially referred to as emergency SNAP. Also, I wanted to say, if you have any questions at any time, please feel free to put them in the chat or come off mute. I'm happy to stop and answer them as we go. So first, we'll talk about replacement SNAP. Replacement SNAP is a program that is always in place. This is something that SNAP agencies always have available in the case of need. So this is only for people who are already on a SNAP case. This is only something that's accessible if you are already a person who receives SNAP when the disaster happens. And we'll talk a little bit later about DSNAP and how that works, but just know that this is for people who are already using the service. You're eligible for this if you experience 12 hours or more of power outage or a household misfortune that causes you to lose food in your house. Those things very specifically have to activate. But another thing to know about this is that this is not just something that happens during a disaster. So if it's just a particularly windy day and your power structure fails and you lose all the food in your fridge and you're on SNAP, this is something you can reach out to them to activate as well. There is an application specific to this. It's called an affidavit request for SNAP replacement due to power outage. This is a form that you'll have to fill out. And basically the way this works is that there is the 1DHS portal that they do all the applications through. What you'll do is you'll download this form, you'll fill it out, and then you'll upload it to the 1DHS portal as an application. So that's how you apply for emergency SNAP or replacement SNAP. This must happen within 10 days of the food loss. This can be a little tricky, especially if you've lost power for more than 10 days. So I would make sure that if this happens to you, make sure that you stay on top of it and try your best to find a way to apply for this. We can help with this if we need to, if you need our help. The benefits you receive from a replacement SNAP distribution are equal to the food cost lost, the cost of the food lost, or 1 month's benefits at current amount, whichever's lower. So if you estimate that you've lost around $100 worth of food, but your SNAP benefits are only $80, for instance, they're only going to give you $80. Um, this is particularly helpful in situations where you've lost food. Just know that you won't receive more than your monthly benefit. Um, it is helpful, however, that it is deposited on your existing EBT card, so there's no worry about having to get a card or figure out how you're going to receive the payment, etc. It'll go directly on your card. So next we're going to talk about DSNAP or disaster SNAP. This is a little more complicated that we'll talk about, and um, this is available to anyone who is impacted by a disaster, not just people who are already on SNAP. Um, so this is only available if a declaration of a major disaster is declared by the president, which has to be requested by the governor. And we'll talk a little bit more about how this kind of flow of process works in a second. But just know that this is something that has to be requested by the governor and approved by the president in order for this to activate. Um, that being said, this is why it is not always activated. Just because a disaster occurs, there's a process that has to happen for DSNAP to be available. And if the governor doesn't request it, or if the president doesn't make the declaration, the USDA cannot activate DSNAP in that area. Um, when it is activated, it only applies to specific areas, usually counties, that are in a geographic area affected by the disaster. And it is also time limited. So it only applies for a certain amount of time. Here is, this is a little overwhelming, but this is the flow chart of how this works. I don't expect you to know this. There won't be a quiz, so don't worry. But just know that this is kind of the flow of how things work when this happens. The disaster occurs, food loss, food loss occurs, retailers close, power fails. Those things have to happen in order for DSNAP to be applicable. And then after that, FEMA, TEMA, and the other response systems that we talked about activate to meet the immediate need. The governor requests the presidential disaster declaration. At that point, if the president makes that declaration, um, other processes come into play. And it is only after power is restored and retailers have reopened that DSNAP can be activated by the USDA. Until that's true, until the power infrastructure has been reactivated and retailers are back open, DSNAP won't activate. But once all these other criteria have been met, USDA and the Food and Nutrition Service arm of USDA has the power to authorize a DSNAP activation in those specific areas. And at that point, the state agency, which in Tennessee here is the Tennessee Department of Human Services, begins to accept DSNAP applications and distribute benefits. These benefits are distributed via EBT cards, similar to normal SNAP benefits, and they are used in all the same retailers that SNAP is used at. A few details about this program after it's already in place and being applied. The default application window for DSNAP is 7 days from the time that it's activated by the USDA. That is a default. However, the situation can call for it to be different. They may increase this based on the situation. Um, the general rule of thumb for DSNAP is that you'll receive 1 month's worth of benefits as if you were a household on SNAP. So if you're a household of four, they will treat you like a household of four when they determine how much benefits to distribute to you. Um, and like I said, it's distributed via an EBT card. So you'll receive one of the red and white cards that we have here in Tennessee with those benefits on it. This doesn't put you as a SNAP eligible household. This doesn't create a case for you as a SNAP household. This is just a one-time distribution. I've linked here a couple of helpful tools, and I will send these slides out afterwards with our follow-up, so you'll have access to this. This first one here is USDA's DSNAP tracker. This is a really interesting and helpful tool because they have a map of the country, and if you click on your state, it'll tell you every time that DSNAP has been activated. Um, and it'll tell you the exact situations of it, where it was, how long it was activated, and the last time that DSNAP was activated here in Tennessee was in May, and I believe that was the West Tennessee tornadoes that happened last year. Um, so you can always go on there to see as if DSNAP is activated, it'll be on there and you can look and see. Um, Another really good tool is this TEMA alerts. They do kind of a news alert system. Um, and this will also give information not only about DSNAP, but about kind of the situation as a whole, like what's happening, what's down, what infrastructure is still active, where you can go for resources if you need them, who to call, et cetera, et cetera. So these are both really good resources if you're in a situation like this. There are other SNAP there are other parts of the SNAP program that may come into play in a situation like this that are separate from DSNAP and replacement SNAP. Um, for instance, the USDA may authorize additional options whenever a presidential disaster is declared. Some previous examples of this that we've seen are authorizing SNAP for hot prepared foods, which is not a way that the SNAP program is normally allowed to operate. But USDA can make that decision in a case where maybe there's not gas to power stoves or the only option is hot prepared food in an area. Um, they may choose to distribute extra benefits to households in order to keep them fed. Um, and then, it's kind of up to them how they respond. So this could look like a number of things. Um, the thing is that this must be requested by the state. These are waivers that the state must ask USDA to opt into. So just be aware that these will be things that are kind of on an as needed basis and may change based on the situation. For WIC, it works a little different. For those of you who don't know, WIC is the Special Supplemental Nutrition Program, Assistance Program for women, infants, and children. Um, this is a program that is great in a lot of ways and helps to support women, infants, children, people who are pregnant and breastfeeding with their nutrition and general help. Um, this is, however, it's not equipped for disaster response. There are a lot of things that it can't do that SNAP can do, which is why we say if you're able to get on both, get on both. That being said, because there are a lot of options that these county level administrators have, um, there are things that they can do. So when a presidential declaration is made, FNS, which is the Food Nutrition Services arm of the USDA, they may allow flexibilities for these offices to meet the need. This could include things like um, offering new options for WIC eligible products that aren't normally available. WIC is very categorical in what you can buy with those benefits. And so FNS may opt in to allow different things to be purchased that aren't normally available in the case of, things not being available or what have you. Another important thing they may do is within 96 hours of a declaration, they can reach out and buy and stock up on infant formula and food in order to get WIC clients and their children through a disaster. This is a really important thing that these WIC offices can do, and we're super happy that they are able to do this. And then in some cases, depending on the situation and the permission from FNS, WIC agencies can reissue benefits if the need is great. Similar to how the SNAP emergency replacement benefits would work. At that case, you would just reach out to your local WIC office that you get your benefits from and talk to them and see if they can help. WIC also provides lactation support, and having the support in place can help during disaster relief for a few reasons. The biggest one being that, you know, chest feeding doesn't require you to have fresh potable water in order to mix like formula does, which is a really good thing. So they suggest if you are able to breastfeed in situations like this, that they can help support that. And in certain situations and crises, WIC offices can actually work with aid groups to provide lactation pumps and other forms of support for babies, um, which is critical, especially if you're a person who is lactating and needs assistance with that. Um, and I reached out to our good friends at the Davidson County WIC office, and they had a lot of interesting things to say about how they've helped people in previous disasters. And I just wanted to give a couple of really good examples that they gave us. In 2020 tornadoes here in Davidson County, there was a lot of need. And so they actually reached out to a number of organizations around the city to work to sign up and like figure out who WIC eligible families were that weren't receiving benefits to get them signed up so that in the future when this happened again, they would be able to activate those families immediately and reach out to them, um, which is what happened in 2023 tornado during the tornadoes last year. Um, the tornadoes here in Davidson County, um, they were able to immediately start sending text messages out to WIC families, families that are already on WIC, to say, hey, what do you need? What services do you need? How can we help? They said that they had a lot of people reach out after that and say, that they were so thankful that the WIC offices were proactive in this and that they were able to reach out them via text during a time when they may not have had a email infrastructure or other kinds of internet. And so we're really happy to have them on board, and um, a lot of WIC offices have the option to do things like this as well. This is a really important piece of legislation that passed a couple years ago, the Access to Baby Formula Act of 2022. It did a lot more than what's on this slide, but I've pulled out some of the most important pieces to talk about for this. It creates a fail-safe for infant formula in cases of disaster, emergency, or recalled product. This is part of the 96-hour formula that I was talking about a moment ago. This allows WIC agencies to kind of get access to stocks of formula that they wouldn't necessarily have access to in the case of a disaster. It also allows the USDA to modify or waive rules regarding access to formula in these situations. A good instance of this is they might waive the maximum monthly allowance for formula during a crisis. For those of you who don't know, if you're on WIC and you're receiving formula from them, um, there's a maximum allowance you can get. So this allows agencies and USDA to dispense more than they would normally be able to. And with that, I'm going to shift a little bit and hand this over to our friend Whitney Cowles, who is the Director of Agency Relations at Second Harvest Food Bank of Middle Tennessee here in Davidson County, and the surrounding counties. And she's going to tell us a little bit about how, besides the federal programs that we've already talked about, how kind of the emergency food system activates in times like this. So I will hand this over to you, Whitney, and I'll go on mute and just let me know when you want to change slides.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you, Chris. Hi, everybody. So happy to be able to join you today and share just a little bit about what Second Harvest and our partner agencies do during and after a disaster. If you want to go to the next slide, Chris. So just kind of a quick overview about Second Harvest. We do have a 46 county service area, which is all of Middle Tennessee and a portion of West Tennessee. We are a member of Feeding America, which is the nationwide network of food banks. And there are 5 food banks in Tennessee that are members of Feeding America. So we only work in those 46 counties, but if there's disasters outside of that area, the Feeding America network and those food banks are always available to assist one another as it might be needed. So we have 3 warehouses in Tennessee. Our largest is in Nashville. We have another warehouse in Smyrna in Rutherford County, And we have another warehouse in Camden, which is about 90 miles or so west of Nashville. So on a regular basis, we're working with a pretty large network of organizations providing food to people facing hunger, food pantries, meal programs, churches, after school programs. There's a pretty wide variety of organizations, and they can source food from Second Harvest. They might get some of their food from Second Harvest and other food locally, but we are an option for them to help provide food in their community. So when a disaster happens, the first thing we really do is reach out to our partner agencies in the area of the disaster. So, for example, when the flooding happened in Waverly, we had about 3 partner agencies in the area that we reach out to, and we are able to take product from Second Harvest and get it there pretty quickly, depending on what the need is. Um, Initially, a lot of the product that we provided was for meals that they were serving in the community. There are so many homes that were lost just immediately. But I do want to emphasize really the first thing that we're doing is working with those partners. We're not just going to pack up a truck and drive it out there, ourselves. And I also wanted to mention that our leadership that works closely with the OEM, National's Office of Emergency Management, TEMA, and we're also a member of Volunteers Active in Disaster, VOAD, which Chris talked a little bit about. As far as the types of food that we have available, um, you know, depending on what the situation is there electricity or is there not? Are people able to prepare food, or do they only need shelf stable? We have a pretty wide range of products available. Lots of shelf stable food, which I know people often think of that for a food bank, rice and beans, soup, stews, canned fruits and vegetables, pasta, cereal, all that kind of stuff. But we also have some what we call boil in the bag meals. It's a fully cooked product that we make in our production facility that's frozen. And it might be like a chili or a spaghetti with meat sauce. So since it's fully cooked, if somebody's serving hot meals, all I have to do is boil water, submerge the bag, and once it's warm, it's ready to serve. So these can be a really great option as people are, working doing cleanup, or if there's needs for, large meals for the community, to pretty easily be able to provide hot meals. We also have tray packs, which are frozen with an entree and 2 sides. Second Harvest actually distributes quite a bit of produce. It's I think about 36% of what we distribute on a regular basis. So after a disaster, or as people are able to get back into their homes and as they have storage, we're available to help, restock, help them get their pantry full again if they need that help. Next slide. So I specifically wanted to share a little bit more about the most recent tornadoes that we had in December. So there were 4 counties that were impacted that are in our service area: Davidson, Montgomery, Stewart, and Sumner counties. So there's a few different ways that we were able to help and collaborate with our partners. You'll see one of those pictures is our mobile market. So this is a newer program that we have where we can bring fresh, frozen, shelf-stable food, whatever type of food is needed, we can bring into a community. And Madison's 50 Forward quickly became a hub for a lot of folks who were impacted by the tornadoes in Madison. And they really became I think a trusted, a really trusted organization by the community. So we worked with 50 Forward and were able to bring our mobile market, I guess 5 different times, where they would have resource events, with other services for folks who were impacted. but they could also get food assistance. So the great thing about the mobile market is we can bring some of that fresh product, um, produce, milk. Um, a lot of people really just wanted masa and beans, rice. We had lots of bottled water. Um, we also, in the other counties, worked directly with several food pantries who they were providing immediate assistance to people who were impacted. A lot of people, even if their home wasn't impacted, um, particularly in Sumner County, there was a pretty large business district that was impacted. So many people who are immediately they're without a job, um, whether they own the business or worked there. Um, you know, pretty quickly they're not earning a paycheck, and so there's a big need there, and it's extensive and it lasts for a long time. Um, so we were able to provide food to those agencies to do distributions, and they actually still continue to serve people. Because we have such great storage space and cold storage, we can be a hub for some of the food donations that come in. Um, nationally, there was a company that wanted to donate a truckload of shelf-stable milk for anybody impacted by the tornadoes. So, we're able to bring that to Second Harvest and, earmark it for any of the organizations that are doing those types of food distributions. We actually had some pretty large donations of frozen chicken and other frozen meat products that was a little bit unusual to me to see that donated after a disaster, but it was so well received once people had their electricity back on. That was really great for them to get such high quality protein. Um, so yeah, our staff went to several different resource events. There were a few in Nashville, um, a couple up in Clarksville. So we have a person who helps do SNAP outreach and can help sign people up for SNAP. Um, so we really just provided food boxes. We try and provide people information about where locally they can go for emergency food, but also how SNAP can be a great, longer term solution for them to have some security in their household. If you want to go to the next slide. Um, so Second Harvest has been around since 1978. We've been here a long time, and most of our partners are pretty well established and working in their communities. So, we're here before a disaster, during, and afterwards. So, um, I appreciate that we're able to kind of work as a hub, take those huge donations and just collaborate with our partners who they really are the folks typically on the ground working directly with the people in their community who they really know. Um, I'm happy to take questions if anybody has any particular questions or anything else. Appreciate the opportunity to share.
Yeah, this is great. Thank you so much, Whitney. I really appreciate you coming and talking to us about this today. And I think it really undergirds how important like these two sectors of the food system really work together, right? Because,
Absolutely.
you know, you guys are on the ground in the moment, but also you're helping in a more sustained way, which really kind of dovetails pretty seamlessly into things like SNAP and WIC and other food assistance programs.
For sure.
Yeah. I'm gonna hold just a little space for anybody with any questions, or you're welcome to put them in the chat. You can come off mute if you'd like. Okay. Well, um, Alicia asks, do you serve Bradley County?
Bradley County is not one of our counties. I'm happy to share a link to a Feeding America website where you can actually enter your zip code or your county and find which is your Feeding America food bank. So if that could be a good resource, or I can just look it up and let you know.
And I'll also share that in the follow-up email as well.
Okay.
Perfect. Are there any other questions before we move on? All right. Thank you so much, Whitney.
Thank
Super
you.
helpful. So let's talk about what's next. So we host a number of monthly working groups, and they cover a range of topics. So we have our WIC Champions group, which is all about people who work with and want to get more involved with the WIC program, run by our lovely WIC team, Anna Grace and Ann Dobson, who you can see here. Um, so yeah, they run an amazing group. We have our Snap Access group, which meets all these meet or Snap Access and WIC Champions and the Healthy Meals, Healthy Kids meet monthly. Snap Access is run by our lovely Geraldine, and she gives updates on what's happening with the SNAP program and kind of opens a space for people to talk and collaborate. Um, and then we have our Healthy Meals, Healthy Kids Tennessee group, which is all about making sure that Tennessee kids get fed and stay fed. And that's run by Kate Gooden, who's also on the call. And then we also do a quarterly college hunger call. This is only once every 3 months. We convene this call to talk to people who are in the college space, who are connected to the college space, or otherwise stakeholders in college hunger, to talk about what's being done, what could be done, how these programs differ in the context of a college student situation. So we invite you to join all of these and come to all of them and say hi and talk about your experiences. We also invite you to join our nutrition note. This is our monthly newsletter. We send this out usually on the second Wednesday of every month, and we will have updates and legislative briefings and all kinds of stuff about all these programs, and what you need to know about it. So sign up with that link that you'll get in the follow-up email. We also have a number of other organizational newsletters, such as Children's Champions, and an Independence newsletter that go out every month. And that's a great way to keep updated with all the programs that TGC does besides nutrition. And here are a number of resources. These are some things that I used while creating this, but also some things that I think would be really interesting and helpful for people to have access to, generally speaking. There's a really good, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a disaster toolkit I linked here from the USDA that goes over a lot of this in short blurbs that's useful in an emergent situation. Um, this article by the 19th is really interesting too, because it talks about the role of WIC in disasters that we didn't get into a lot of, because some of it's not necessarily relevant here in Tennessee, but it is a really great article to read, and I suggest you look into it. Um, Additionally, there are some fact sheets that we've created about SNAP and WIC. And if you're somebody who needs help applying for SNAP, or if you know somebody who needs help applying for SNAP, I've linked here our SNAP application assistance flyer that breaks down by region and city partner agencies who are contracted with DHS to help people apply for this program. So all of this hopefully is helpful. And if you watching have any resources you would like to share with the group for me to send out and the follow-up email, I encourage you to put it in the chat. Um, but with that, I'm going to open it up for discussion and see if anybody has any questions or comments or anything else they want to talk about. We're here as a resource.
Whitney, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Um, so how in areas that are affected by natural disasters, how long does it take to get kind of back to business as usual when you're thinking about food distribution? Like how long does that process look?
Well, for from Second Harvest, from our perspective, since the December tornadoes, we are mostly back to business as usual. I know one of our partners, Gallatin Cares, they're working as, I don't know, a hub or some sort of a site for FEMA where folks who are, I mean, I don't even understand the whole program, but who were heavily impacted and they're getting federal or state assistance. So they're continuing to serve those folks. I'm not sure how much with food that is. Um, each one is really different. With the floods in Waverly, that was a pretty long time. We worked with some organizations who were they continued for at least a year doing pretty large monthly food distribution. But I would say maybe 2 months or so, at least after the flood, those partners were still working so much to provide meals because there were just so many people impacted, not a lot of places to stay unless you just totally left town. It just a tremendous amount of need there. So, I don't know. Hopefully that helps answer your question a little bit.
No, it does. Thank you.
Thanks, Kate. That was Kate. She runs our Healthy Males, Healthy Kids group. She's wonderful. Does anybody else have any questions, any comments, any clarifications? We'll also love to hear any resources you have. So I think I'll hold another minute just to see if anybody has anything. All right. Well, I believe that is the end of our presentation. Thank you again, Whitney, for joining us. It's been really great. I'd always love to hear what Second Harvest is up to and how you guys are helping people.
Thank
Um,
you.
yeah. This is our contact information. Please feel free to reach out to us with any questions you have, any resources you have or need. We are here to help. And with that, we are done. I'm going to stop recording now, but feel free